Hi everybody, welcome to a new video. It's July 1st and that means that it's Canada Day. It also means that it's Rwandan Independence Day, and it also means that it's time for an update video to go back over the things that I did and didn't do in June and talk about my plans for July. I'm going to do this video a little bit differently. I promised you 2 mystery carpentry projects in my last video, and I only gave you one. So we're going to do the other one this morning. We're just going to build a very small and simple screen for the shower window that I have, bash it out really quickly, check it off my list, and then we're going to get into the June update, July plans, and then I'm going to take you on my trip to Porto, and then I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction. I've had some people ask in the comments for me to talk a little bit about my background and how I ended up in Portugal. And in that introduction, I'll talk about why I celebrate Canada Day, which is probably quite obvious, and why I know about Rwandan Independence Day, which is probably a lot less obvious. So I've got some different things in store for this video. I hope you enjoy it. Let's build a screen. My plan for the screen is extremely simple. Basically, I'm gonna get a piece of wood, chop it to size, cram it into the shower hole, and then chop pieces of screen in strips, staple them on. The screen's very easy to cut with the scissors. Staple the strips on, and that will allow Mikey to come and go. My little buddy Mikey, he's a timid cat. He's quite acrobatic, but he is a little bit of a scaredy cat, so I'll probably have to train him to go through the screen, i.e. shove him through a few times so he gets the hang of it. But I'm hoping he'll still use the window and he won't be too scared to jump across. So this piece of wood should do. I don't know, I've got some measuring to do, but basically I'll find a piece of wood that goes in like that, and then I'll have little strips of screen dangling below, and hopefully the cat approves. Cat ramp needs some attention. This seems quite sturdy on this side, but this is more of a springboard than a ramp, so I'll need to maybe fix this. I feel like I can probably just bash that in with a hammer. Is bashing my strategy? I think bashing is going to be my strategy. Maybe I'll chop out a little divot there. Okay, I think with a little bit of bashy hammer fun, I can get this to stay in even like that. Without bashy, it'll still stay. So let's make some screen. Alright, this screen-like thing is in place, and it is not beautiful. I'm not entirely sure it's actually going to function as designed, but I think I've learned that when I put pressure on myself to start and finish something within a video, on the same day the video is coming out, I end up with crap, basically. I'm not exactly proud of this. I'm going to cut a few more strips so that they overlap the other strips, and I definitely need to find a better way to fasten the wood into the stone wall. But anyway, a very dubious screen-like thing has been done. I also did another one for the door, which basically involved cutting a circle and stapling it to the door. Definitely a temporary solution, but a screen nonetheless. I do have 2 other holes in my house that I should add screens to. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. For the moment, it's fine. Those 2 windows, the portholes, were the major ones I wanted to get done. So let's go back to the beginning of my list, and I'll go over what I have and haven't done. We'll be seeing a lot of this guy. Finish bricks. Actually, I did that. I've laid out the whole shape of the splash pool, and I've even done some bricklaying to reinforce the side wall as well. So that was a massive task. I'm really happy to have it done. I have the structure of the pool there, and I'm quite happy with how it's gone. Point rocks. I haven't done that, but I can see myself doing this quite often in the heat. It's a really relaxing, chilled out, and enjoyable job, and I'll just work on it as and when I can when the weather is really, really hot, down in the shady part underneath the tarp. Render the pool. This is the job for July. This is the thing that I absolutely need to get done. I haven't done it yet because I've been away, I've been busy with other things, and mostly because the weather has been too hot. Rendering requires cooler heat so that it doesn't crack, so I've been waiting for a couple of days of cooler weather, which is low 30s instead of mid 30s, and that's coming up next week, so I'll be on that next week, I hope, unless the weather changes. But I will do some practice rendering, possibly even today. Waterproof the pool. I guess that comes after the rendering stage, so I haven't done that yet. That's just rolling on this sort of cementy, waterproofy stuff, and then painting it with the blue pool paint. Plan the patio. I've planned it roughly in my head, but I haven't actually sat down and done a drawing. It's not essential that I do that in order to finish the pool, but it would be good to just get that done to have an entire idea of what that whole area is going to look like down there. The shower. Nope. Haven't done either of these things. Really, June got away from me. I feel like I did a lot of social things. I spent 5 days in Scotland, which I'll share with you on a different video coming up. I was in Porto for the weekend. My birthday was in June. Some other friends' birthdays were in June, so I did a lot of that stuff. These are all of my excuses, but I basically haven't gotten into the shower. However, July, August, they're very hot, so I'll probably find myself hiding in the house doing a lot of tasks. Tool shed. I did this. Hello, green pen. Finished the rebel trench. I'd been waiting on a delivery of gravel for ages. Finally it came, and that allowed me to finish, finally, the rebel trench, which is the base for building the stone foundation for my tool shed on. Haven't started the stone foundation, haven't finalized the design, haven't began wood prep, and I haven't finished the door trim. So June defeated me, but that's okay. There's July, there's August. What doesn't get done now will get done in the future. I'm never in a rush. The process is what it's all about for me, and so I'm not going to beat myself up for not finishing things. There's definitely things I would like to have done sooner rather than later, the splash pool being my #1 priority, but that's kind of weather dependent, and I have actually taken a long time to muster the courage to even attempt the rendering, so I'm feeling confident. I've done a lot of research on YouTube, and I'm definitely going to tackle it in July. July is going to be a bit different. I'm not going to do a big, huge list like I had in June, like I've had in previous months. The whole point of July is to survive. July and August here in central Portugal are brutal. Often we have days above 35 degrees, and those are not days that you can work. So my goal will be to survive the heat and see if I can work through my June list. And I'm also gonna do maybe some random tasks in my house. I don't want to write them down because I don't really know exactly what I want to work on. I'll just do things as they come to me. So July's plans will be a little different. The plan is to have no plan, except finishing my pool. That's my number one priority. No matter what, I will be splashing in my pool and drinking a cocktail at the end of July, if it's the last thing I do. So that's my July plans. That's my fairly unsuccessful but still satisfying June, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this month holds. I want to say a big thanks to everybody who watches my videos. My channel's slowly growing. My subscriber numbers are slowly going up, and it's really fun to see that happen, as well as the engagement in the comments. I love meeting new people in there. I love chatting. I love explaining myself when I haven't been clear in the video, so I love your questions. And I find I get lots of really great advice from people as well. So everybody who communicates with me in the comments and gives advice or just has the chats or just says hello, I really love that. So keep it coming. And for everybody who's given me little donations here and there on PayPal or Super Thanks, that really goes a long way. So thanks a lot to you guys for that. And for everybody who's sent me little donations in PayPal and Super Thanks, those go a long way. So thanks very much for those. I really appreciate them. And I guess that's my June summary. So let's take a little trip to Porto. I went and visited a few friends this past weekend. Friends that I know from disaster volunteering that I used to do. I did it for about 3.5 years, followed this organization all around the world. And that's going to be part of my little introduction or reintroduction that I do at the end of this video. So enjoy some sights of Porto, and then I'll see you after that, and we'll have a little chat about how I ended up in Portugal and maybe what my future plans are as well. So I'll see you after this little trip to Porto. Okay, that was my time in Porto. It was a really wonderful trip. It was great to catch up with some friends that I haven't seen in a really, really long time. And I hope that during the time of watching that little montage about Porto, you've forgotten about the abomination that was that attempt at making a screen that I did. That didn't actually work. I ended up pulling it out of the window. It was madness to think it would work. That screen material isn't very flexible. Probably would have stabbed little Mikey. And I basically just failed. So I have no screen. So we can take that one off of my list as a success. It did not work. But I'll get back to the drawing board on that and revisit the project at a later date. So I'm down in my water tank, hiding from the sun and the wind. And I thought I would give you a little summary of how I ended up in Portugal and a bit about myself as well. So seems like a reasonably okay backdrop, and I'm just gonna talk for a while, I guess. So let's get started, and I'll try to be quick so I can beat the sun. I'm from a city called St. Catharines, which is in southern Ontario. It's right near Niagara Falls, right on the US border. I lived there until I was 24. I'm 46 now. Just had my birthday a few days ago. So I left Canada when I was 24 and went one way to Australia. And I did that because I had spent a summer in Ireland, and I saved up my money working at my crappy retail job at Kmart, saved up my money, and in between university, the summer break, I went to Ireland, I scrubbed toilets, I worked in a backpacker's hostel, I lived in a different hostel, and I met loads of amazing people who were basically just traveling around the world, working as they went. And that was a revolution for me. I sort of thought if you were going to go traveling, which I wanted to do, I thought you'd have to save your money, go on a trip, come back, save your money, and repeat, taking short trips as you could afford. But when I went to Ireland, I met loads of Australians, loads of New Zealanders who were just on these epic round-the-world trips, working as they went. So that was a real eye-opener for me. And so when I graduated university in 2001, I basically took a one-way trip to Australia. I had a working visa in hand, and I basically just picked fruit and traveled around the country for a full year, spent all my money, got a job at the very end, bought a plane ticket, had a little bit of spending money in my pocket, and I headed then to the UK. I have a British passport. My dad is Scottish. If you want to meet my parents, I've got a whole playlist up there of their visits. And I wanted to take advantage of having a British passport. So originally I went to Glasgow and I was planning on working there, but I ended up getting a job in London as a travel agent. I was a terrible travel agent. I'm not very good at selling things, as it turns out. And I basically sucked at that, but I had a really good time in London. And I ended up staying in London for 5 years. I also worked in other jobs, mostly doing office stuff, and I lived in a massive house share with a whole bunch of people and had a really good time in London. And during that time, I also ended up going to New Zealand for about 7 months on another working holiday visa. And again, just traveling and enjoying life and working a lot of jobs as I had to, all kinds of different things, mostly picking fruit. I've picked a lot of fruit in my life, but it's given me the opportunity to continue my travels. And so I'm really happy that I have a passport that allows me to take advantage of these types of visas. I don't know if the working holiday visa program is still around. If it is, and you want to go traveling long term, it's a really great way to fund your travels as you're on the move. So I think a lot of people that choose this off-grid lifestyle, moving out into the country, seem to want to escape the fast-paced life. They want to escape the rat race. I wouldn't say I've ever really been in the rat race. I've always kind of just done whatever jobs I needed to do to enjoy the place that I've been in. And I've always kind of had a bit of an unconventional life. I have a business degree. I wasn't really that into university. I somehow scraped by and still got a degree. But I wouldn't say I've ever used that degree in a professional capacity. I've always just kind of done whatever. And then I was really lucky because I ended up starting to learn how to build websites. I think back in 2001, I made my first website. And so somehow I had a whole bunch of websites that I was just building because I was interested in the topics. They were all about traveling and stuff like that. And that was well timed with people buying links and selling ads and things on the internet. So I ended up traveling around the world from, I think I left London in 2007, destination Asia. I went to Philippines first. And I think I traveled around the world for about 5 or 6 years, making very good money from the internet. So it was kind of like an an old school, original digital nomad, I suppose, when very few people were doing that sort of thing. And I basically traveled around for ages, but I realized that I kind of got bored being on the move for longer than about 3 weeks. And that's when I kind of switched over to doing volunteer work. And I found an organization, I think now it's called All Hands and Hearts, but at the time it was called Hands On. And that's where I met my friends that I hung out with in Porto. I met Sinead there and Sancha, who will be moving down to the properties close to mine. And yeah, just lots of great people. And I followed them around for about 3.5 years to all kinds of countries. I've been to Haiti multiple times, Philippines, Bangladesh, where else? Other places I'm forgetting. I worked with them in Nepal and in Malawi, and I've been to Sumatra with them as well. So it was a really amazing way to travel the world while doing something interesting and maybe a little bit helpful. And then I found myself traveling in Africa. I went to South Africa for the World Cup, met up with some friends I'd met in London, and I basically had decided that I was really sick of traveling. So this is how I know about Rwandan Independence Day. I basically made my way up to Rwanda because I had a friend there. And I joke around that I went to Rwanda for 7 days and I stayed for 7 years. I actually probably stayed for closer to 8 years permanently, and probably a decade on and off. I was kind of coming and going for another 2 years after that. In that time, I ended up making a website for the city of Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda. That turned into a business as this other stuff was kind of falling away. The earnings from selling links on websites wasn't really viable anymore. So I made this website for Kigali. Kigali is a wonderful city. If I can get anyone to do anything, inspire anything on this channel, I would actually choose to inspire people to go visit Rwanda. It's definitely a complicated country, but it's a wonderful place. And, you know, it's just a really clean, safe country full of wonderful people. And I really loved my time there. So I didn't leave Rwanda because I didn't like it anymore. I really love that place, as I hope is evident. I left because I wanted to do something different. In my travels, I was doing the volunteering stuff, which is part of where I got a lot of my building skills that people ask me about quite often. But I also did lots of work exchanges as well. And I went to this place in Nicaragua, and that's when I first became exposed to the world of permaculture and natural building. And that was just sort of mind-blowing and really inspiring. And so since then, I basically did as many work exchanges as I possibly could while traveling around. So I knew in the back of my mind that while I love living in Rwanda, I wanted to go somewhere where I could find a little piece of land and have a little homestead. While I was in Rwanda, I also started a business making maps. So I have this weird skill set of map maker, natural builder, maybe a web designer, I suppose. Most of the things I've taught myself. And I basically made some maps. So I made one of Kigali. You can see the website up there, Africa Guide Maps. Kigali, Nairobi, Kampala, and Addis Ababa. And just paper maps, paper tourist maps. They're a massive labor of love. They take 2 years to make. And I would love to go back and do reprints when I'm a little bit more settled here, if people are still buying paper maps. But that's really my passion. I really love the map making stuff, and maybe I would do a map of this region. I'm not really sure. Obviously, my land is keeping me very busy, and the building is keeping me busy, but that kind of thing's always in the back of my mind. So the maps were where I was getting my income from when I arrived in Portugal. And the reason I chose Portugal wasn't because I'm super excited about Portugal. I am now. I really love Portugal, but the initial reason for coming here was because I found myself on the Pure Portugal website flipping through a whole bunch of affordable properties. I never would have imagined in a million years that I would ever be able to afford to buy any type of property. I made okay money, but housing costs and all that kind of stuff just seemed out of my reach. And so when I went on this website and saw that there were all kinds of things for sale that were affordable for me, my mind just kind of went crazy, and I just started dreaming big. And I ended up coming to Portugal for the first time in 2016 to scope it out. I think I'd already decided I wanted to move to Portugal, but I'm like, maybe I should go first before I make that decision. And then I came back in 2017. I spent a month in Porto to see if I was going to be city girl or country girl. A month in Porto, exploring, working online on my maps and things. And then I came out to this region where I volunteered at Kila Yoga Farm. place that my friends have. You can check out their channel. They make some videos sometimes as well. And I had a really great time. I really loved this area, and everything seemed affordable. I liked Portugal. I love the chilled vibe here. Hello from a new filming location, deeper within the water tank. My feet are in the water. The tripod is sitting in the water. It's nice and shady here under the tarp. I was forced to change locations because my camera overheated and then the battery died. And as I waited for it to charge, the sun has encroached on my previous spot. So now I'm enjoying being in the water tank and being nice and cool. I can't wait for this thing to actually be filled. Currently there's about 10 centimeters of water in here, so not exactly the refreshing experience that I'll hope for in the future, but it's definitely nice to have my feet in the water. So where were we? I think I left off with a visit to Kila Yoga Farm in 2017 as a volunteer. I then went back to Rwanda, did my maps, did my website stuff, and returned to Portugal in 2018 with my friend Sinead, the friend who's buying the property bordering mine. We stayed for 3 months. We had a great time and met loads of people. I really kind of felt like I was getting myself ingrained in the community, worming my way in, building a nice friends group, and I had a really lovely time. But I hadn't decided on which part of Portugal I wanted to move to yet. I felt like it would be really silly to decide on a location without having really traveled anywhere else. I'd only been to Lisbon and Porto, and I hadn't really checked out any other places at all. So I was quite resistant about looking for properties in this area before I went exploring. So I spent the next couple years, I think, living between Rwanda and some other places, doing maps. I was in Nairobi for quite a while. I was in Kampala for a while. And I visited my parents in Florida for a couple months right before COVID, went to Rwanda to do some more map stuff, pack up my life, and then I flew to Portugal. And practically as I was in the air, things started closing down. I was lucky to get into Portugal when I did. I spent a week with my friend Carrie, and I was planning on going to the Azores to do a natural building course and check it out. But the Azores closed. The Azores closed its doors, and so I ended up staying with my friend Carrie for a full year. She took me in as a COVID refugee, and thanks, Carrie, you saved the day. I helped her build a straw bale house. So I had lots of work to keep me busy, and we sort of did a rent swap for my work. And it also gave me an opportunity to explore my own projects, and I decided that I would look for some properties, but I didn't look very seriously. I felt like I needed 30,000 euros in my account for some reason, and I could never seem to get there. But as COVID dragged on, as my savings dwindled, I just kind of thought that I didn't know what to do, really. I was, as with many people, really confused about what was going to happen. My maps business was failing because nobody was traveling, and it was a pretty tough financial time, and I really didn't know what to do. So I ended up going on Pure Portugal just on a whim one day. Like I said, I didn't feel like I could afford anywhere, but I just looked at it, and I found a property, this property, the only property I looked at for just under 14,000 euros. And I originally thought it was in a different location, but it checked all my other boxes. And then I ended up finding out that actually the location was wrong on the website, and it's in my perfect location. So I was really eager to check it out. I looked at it. I didn't think about it for very long, and I ended up buying it about 2.5 years ago. So that's how I ended up on this little piece of property. It's a perfect size for me. It's 1,800 square meters, I think. It's like a half a hectare. And it's got the stone barn, which is about 4 meters by 5 meters. 30 olive trees. It's got 2 water sources, the one I'm sitting in right now, and there's also a well down at the bottom. And it's in a great location, not far from a little village that has a cafe, and that's also kind of a main road into the bigger city. And I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of friends that I met here. So while I was kind of nervous about buying a place without really exploring the rest of the country, I sort of had the thought that lots of my friends have ended up here after exploring the country. Many of them looked at dozens and dozens of properties. Some friends looked for 4 years before deciding on here. And I sort of just took that as permission to buy here without actually looking anywhere else at all. And I'm really happy I did. I bought at the perfect time for me. I bought before I completely squandered all my savings. My maps business has still not really pepped back to life, but I have hope that it will one day. And I basically have been kind of scrounging around doing whatever work I can, some online writing. I sold my Living in Kigali website, which really saved me for a while there. And yeah, I'm just kind of getting by, and now YouTube has kind of come into the mix as well. So things are good. Life is good. I love Portugal. Like I said, I really like the vibe. I like the countryside. I love the weather, except for the weather right now. I actually don't mind the winter in Portugal. Some people ask me why I left Canada. I like Canada. I'm really happy I grew up there. I think it's a great country. But I've always loved traveling. I've always loved living overseas. And for me, Canada is too cold, first of all. But also, I spent 25 years of my life in Canada, and I wanted to go out and explore other places. And after doing a bit of traveling, I discovered that I really do like living abroad. And I like exploring new cultures and countries. And I guess that's how I ended up here. I'm very interested in the homesteading life. Living off grid is cool, but it's not really my motivation. I think I live off grid because I can. I could afford the solar setup, and I have water here and things, so that's really cool. But I'd just as easily be on the grid. The electricity comes from wind turbines, so it's quite environmentally friendly, and it's not that expensive if you're not heating your house with electricity. But the power poles are just too far away, and so I went with solar, which I'm totally happy with as well. But I'm not a stickler for all of that stuff. My motivation for having a homestead sort of lifestyle is basically financial freedom and being able to do lots of interesting things that I like. I really like building. I really like growing. I really like designing systems and a property that all works together. And living on a piece of land that I don't have a mortgage for, and living off grid where I don't have bills. It allows me to kind of live very frugally. I've never been a consumerist. I don't really spend money on stuff. I'll buy things that allow me to make other things, so I'll spend money on computers or art supplies and things like that, but I don't generally just go clothes shopping or just buying things. I don't care about having a new car. I don't care about having a new anything, really. I will buy lots of tools, but they allow me to make other things. Going forward into the future, I don't really know. I'm super content here. I'm very happy. I love waking up every morning and being able to choose the projects that I work on. I love that my friend Sinead and possibly my friend Sancha are both going to be moving nearby. I love that I have a good group of friends in this area. Life is really, really nice, and I hope that it continues far into the future. I can see myself just waking up every morning, working on my property, working on my land, and going to sleep tired every night for the foreseeable future and being quite happy with that. I don't have any big plans for the future. I suppose I'd like to go home to Canada in October, and when my friend Sinead moves here, and Sancha as well, I think we'll probably find ourselves collaborating on a lot of things. I don't know what, but hopefully some cool things can happen. So that's my update. That's all I got for you. I hope you haven't tired of looking at my face. I did have grand plans to show you shots from around my garden, but I ran out of time. So here I am. This is my story. I hope you find my channel interesting. If you've watched for this long, I imagine you do, and I hope you'll continue to watch. But I've been talking now for a crazy amount of time, so I'm going to wrap the video up. That's my summary video. That's my little update video. And thanks for watching it. If you have any questions at all, leave me a comment. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.